let's talk about awesome knitting patterns that were released this past November. Hello everyone, Rochelle here, and I'm back to share some yarn goodness with y'all today. Okay, so today we are going to talk about size inclusive garments, patterns that you can use as accessories, and patterns for the home. Now, these are available free either as a download or on the designer's blog. And of course, everything that I talk about today will be linked in the description box below. So let's start with garments. The first one we have is the Alina Sweater, designed by Crystal Marin of Krista Co. Design. It calls for a worsted weight yarn, and the bust circumference ranges between 30 to 62 inches. And in centimeters, that is 76 to 157.5. So you will need 2 knitting needle sizes to make this. You will need a US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter, and a US 9, which is a 5.5 millimeter. And of course, as I always say, your tension, your gauge is different, or it could be different from the designer. So you may have to go up a needle size or down a needle size. So some of the skills you will need include alternating cable cast on, magic loop, German short rows, knit, knit two together, make one left, make one right, purl, and slip, slip, knit. So there's a nice variety of stitches that you will need to know. And the yoke is worked flat to shape the V-neck. Then you join it and work in the round for the body and the sleeves. And the sweater is knit in stockinette stitch, so that's fun. And it has a 2x2 ribbing on the cuffs and the hem. All right, let's move on to our next one. It is the Earrach Sweater, designed by Debbie Madge for Expression Fiber Arts. Now, you all know me and names, so if I mess something up, just bear with me. So this calls for fingering weight yarn, and the bust circumference ranges between 32 to 65.75 inches. And in centimeters, that's 81.5 to 167. So you will need 2 knitting needle sizes for this one also. You will need a US 3, which is a 3.25 millimeter, and a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter. So the skills you will need in order to make this sweater includes German short rows, knit 2 together, make 1, purl, knit, slip, slip, knit, working with the yarn in front, and a broken 2x2 rib. So this is how you make it. The top starts with a 2x2 broken rib, and then it goes into a colorwork band that's followed by stripes. The sweater is separated for the front and the back, and then joined again using a 3 needle bind off. The sleeves are then picked up and worked down in the round, and then the neckband is picked up. So that is the basic construction of this sweater. Now, I have to let you all know that this pattern is free for a limited amount of time, so get your copy today. Okay, so let's move on to our next pattern. It is the Pocket Edition Sweater, designed by Cedar Yarn Co. And this calls for sport weight yarn, and the bust circumference ranges between 43.5 to 64.75 inches. And in centimeters, that is 110.5 to 164.5. So you will need 2 knitting needle sizes for this one. You will need a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter, and a US 6, which is a 4 millimeter. So you don't need a whole lot of skills for this one, but you will need to know how to do German short rows, knit, knit front and back, and purl. And of course, if there's any skills that you're not familiar with, maybe it's the German short rows, maybe it's the knit front and back, you can always go on YouTube and check out tutorials. There's tons of tutorials for every knitting stitch you could possibly imagine. Okay, so this sweater is knit from the top down with a round neckline, straight sleeves, and a small pocket. So there's a small front pocket there, and it has textured ribbing at the neck, the cuffs, and the hem. And then also it has a rolled edge. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out this pattern. Let's move on to accessories. The first one we have is the closed cable scarf designed by Hiromi Glover for Pearl Soho. So this one calls for worsted weight yarn, and it has 3 sizes. So it has small, medium, and large. And it calls for 2 knitting needles. You have your US 6, which is a 4 millimeter, and your US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter. And in terms of skills you'll need to know how to cable, slip stitch purlwise, knit, purl, work with yarn in the back, and work with yarn in the front. And so in terms of constructions to knit this scarf, you'll start and end with ribbing that flows into 5 cable columns. There is a single purl stitch between each one to clearly define each cable. So that's good. And then when you get to that 2 slit keyhole, you'll knit each section separately and then join them all together again. So that's how that one is constructed. Let's move on to our next one. It is the Grande neck warmer designed by Amy Perez. It calls for bulky weight yarn, and the finished size is 12.5 inches wide by 11 inches, and that's folded. And in centimeters, that is 32 by 28. So you will need a US 10, which is a 6 millimeter knitting needle. So of course, with chunky yarn, you get to use chunky needles, and that's always fun. And you will need to know how to do the old Norwegian cast on or the cast on of your choice. You will also need to know how to knit, purl, and slip one purlwise with the yarn in front. The body of the neck warmer is knit flat in one piece. Then the stitches around the neck are picked up and knit in the round. So from looking at the photos, it looks like a fairly simple, straightforward pattern. I did read a little bit of the pattern, and it does seem like it would be fun to make, and maybe something, a beginner could try, or maybe someone who's more advanced, if they want something a little bit more simple to work on, definitely check out this pattern. Okay, so the next one we have is the Annabel Scarf designed by Wendy Morris. So this one calls for fingering weight yarn, and it comes in one size, but it is adjustable. And in terms of a knitting needle, you will need a US 8, which is a 5 millimeter. You will need to know how to knit, purl, knit 2 together, yarn over, and do a picot cast off. So the scarf is constructed with using 2 alternating panel patterns. You're going to use 20 rows of garter stitch and 20 rows of the stocking stitch. And that is how the scarf is created. Let's move on to the Bounty Beret. And it is designed by Avery Erb. So this calls for bulky weight yarn, and it comes in 3 sizes. You will need a US 9 5.5 millimeter and a US 8 5 millimeter. The skills you will need include knit, knit front and back, knit 2 together, purl, right lifted, decrease, and working with the yarn in the back. So the beret is worked in the round from the top down, beginning with a few rows of I-cord. So this is a good chance to practice your I-cord. And the brim is worked in a texture of a 2x1 brim. And it's a 2x1 rib pattern. And then you finish it off with an Icelandic bind off. So if you haven't wanted to try the Icelandic bind off, this beret is for you. It's an opportunity to learn a new skill or brush up on an old skill. You never know. But I did want to take a little bit of a break and talk about what I am wearing. So this is the bandana. Why can't I say that word today? Bandana cowl number 4, and it is designed by Cleo Malone. Now I've done a whole video about this pattern. It is a free pattern, and what I'm going to do is leave my Ravelry link below with the video link in it if you want to check out what I did to make mine. So this is a really nice cowl. I think it fits really well, and also I remember when I first made it, I thought that the neck was a little snug, but now through some wear and with it just relaxing, I feel like it is perfect, and I would definitely make another one. And so basically I just wanted a simple, classic black scarf that I could wear, and I really like this one. Let's talk about patterns for the home. Okay, so we have the Charm Blanket designed by Hiromi Glover for Pearl Soho. And it calls for fingering weight yarn. And the finished dimensions are 36 inches wide by 48 inches tall. And in centimeters, that is 91 by 122. But this is adjustable. So as you notice, it is made with hexagons or octagons. It's made with octagons. So the more octagons you add or subtract is going to, of course, adjust the size of your blanket. Now you will need a US 8 5mm knitting needle. And the skills you will need include slipping stitches with yarn and back, long tail cast on, knit, knit two together, and knit front and back. So it is knit in garter stitch with yarn held double. And you will join each octagon as you go. So that's a really fun blanket. I think it would be so nice to use, like maybe if you have some yarn scraps, or if you've got some balls of yarns that has been used, you've got some leftovers, or if you have some mini skeins. I think this would be really fun for that. Okay, let's move on to the Softly Simple hot water bottle cover designed by Emma Munn of Emma Knitty. So this one calls for Aran weight yarn, and it comes in one size. So you will need a US 13, which is a 9mm, and a US 9, which is a 5.5mm. And to make this one, you only need to know about 3 skills, and that includes knit, knit two together, and knit front and back. So it is knit flat from the top down in one piece. And so this is really nice. I'm trying to think if I've ever used a hot water bottle. Let me know if you have ever used a hot water bottle. And if you have you ever knit or crocheted a cover for it? Let me know. Next up, we have the Cedar Stitch Pillow designed by Meg Roke for Hobie. It calls for worsted weight yarn, and the width is 15.8 inches by 15.8 inches. It's a square. So in centimeters, it's 39.5 by 39.5. You will need a US 5 3.75mm knitting needle, and you will need to know how to knit, purl, and do the long tail cast on. So this is a pretty simple, straightforward, another really good pattern for beginners. Now you will need to do a few things in terms of construction. So the pillow is knit flat in one piece, and it is seamed after blocking. So there is some seaming involved. And it features a combination of vertical and horizontal stripes that look like chunky running stitches woven throughout the knitted fabric. So that's what's really cool about this. If you're more of an adventurous beginner and you want to knit a fabric that looks woven, then this is a really good pattern for you. So let me know, what are some crochet patterns or what are some knitting patterns? I just did a crochet video. What are some knitting patterns that you found during the month of November? Share with the class. We would all love to know. And as you know, I knit and I crochet. And I've recently uploaded a crochet roundup video. In fact, I'm going to leave a preview here. So if you're looking for a pattern that's really going to test your skills and teach you a lot of new techniques, this pattern is for you. I think that this would be a great project for mini skeins, leftover yarn, or perhaps some scrap yarn that you have. I think it would be really, really great for that. I think that this beautiful blanket would look so great draped on the back of a chair as kind of like an accent piece. I think that would be wonderful. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the preview of the crochet video. If you want, you can go ahead and check that out as well. And I did want to let you all know of one other thing that's going on. So I am having a 30% off sale in my yarn shop. I have hand-dyed yarn, and this is just a few of the yarn. You don't need a coupon code or anything like that, but this is Space Stone, and Gravel, and Dragon, and Golden Hour, got it twisted up here, Golden Hour, and Sun Kiss. So yeah, this is my yarn that I dyed, and I wanted to mention this because I was having a sale. I haven't had a sale in a long time, so I've put it out on social media and things like that, but I just realized I never mentioned it on my actual channel, so I wanted to go ahead and tell you all about that. All right, so let me know what you worked on while watching, or did you just chill? I would love to know. I love reading you all's comments, and I've recently been trying to catch up on your comments, so bear with me. And definitely click that notification bell so you know when my next video is coming up. And also click that like button and subscribe if you would. I am trying to get to 12,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm getting close, but not quite there. And if you are already subscribed, thank you, and share with a friend. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, bye.